Right, well, good morning everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. My name's Andrew Sleeth. I'm the International Marketing Manager at GL Education, and I'd like to welcome you to the webinar. I do know one or two people have had problems getting onto the webinar this morning, so my apologies for that. We have to start accordingly, and for anybody that is unable to get on, there will of course be the recording. We'll start her presentation shortly, but first I'd like to cover a couple of housekeeping items. During the presentation, we'll keep everyone on mute. This is to keep the schedule, and at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. If you want to ask a question, drop in a brief summary into the chat box and address it to the host. I'll relay this to Claire at the end. If you have questions, again, address those to the host, and my colleague Ben will work to assist you. After the webinar, you'll be redirected to a page on our website with information about the placement test and our other products. And of course, as I've said, we are recording and we will get this out within the next 40 hours. Claire is the International Manager at GL Education. She more normally be found in Asia or the Middle East, but she's in fact just returned from the ESIS conference in Copenhagen, where she appears to have picked up a hint of a cold. So we're hoping her voice will hold out for today. Can you kick off, please?
And welcome to those of you who are listening, both live and as a recording, to this webinar, which is an introduction to the placement test. So the placement test is a new assessment for us at GL Education. It's a brand new assessment, and it's designed to support admissions in schools, and it's currently available for ages 7 years 6 months through to 14 years and 11 months, and I'll address the age ranges for the placement later on in the webinar. This should last, I should have said at the beginning, around 15 minutes or so, with an opportunity to ask questions at the end for those of you who are listening live. So the placement test is designed really to support schools making quick, informed, but also accurate decisions during the admissions process. Is its primary objective, that's what it's been designed for, is to assist you, admissions managers and admissions staff, in making those good decisions when you have students in front of you, and whether they are suitable for the school, whether your school is suitable for them. Back before I talk through the detail on the placement test, this graph you can see in front of you showcasing components that are used by schools currently within the admissions process. So the source of this was a report produced by SSATB, and it's a report called SSATB, International School Admission Industry. It was produced in 2013, and after extensive research, it showed that 98% of schools, so international schools, use grades and formal records of students' prior attainment in informing the admissions process. 3/4 of schools use candidate interviews. Parent interviews are used in just over half of schools. And interesting that 53% on the right-hand side is in-house assessments. Now, as I go into different schools around the world and speak to both admissions managers and staff within the school, I do hear a lot of frustration when in-house assessments are used, because of course it takes then time for that paper to be scored. It's often felt that perhaps that assessment isn't quite right for some of the students who are sitting there, because it may rely on prior curriculum knowledge. So the behind our placement assessment is really to support you as admissions staff in providing an assessment that is right for the student in front of you, that is right for you. So we'll give you the data that you need as well to make those decisions. Well, first of all, it will provide you with an indication of a student's ability before they join school, so that you're not relying on records that you may or may not receive. And again, anecdotally, I hear that you may request many times some data on students from their previous school, but you may not always get data in a format that is understandable, or you not receive any data at all. So the placement test will give you that indication of a student's ability before you make the decision on admission into the school. It removes that need for in-house assessments where they are having to be marked either by yourself or by a teacher within the school, because the placement test will automatically score online and the results are available instantly as well. So you can make quick decisions. There's those previous school reports, as I've said. The placement test will identify students who may require additional English language support. Again, part of the objective of the placement test is also to provide you information on how that student is beginning to settle in, so whether they need further support in particular areas, particularly if you're in an inclusive school. Also support effective communication with parents. So what I mean by that is, again, it's anecdotal, but many schools say to me, it was having a third-party assessment that is independent from the school, so that then you as staff can then talk to parents. Even if the answer is no, you can give that clear, standardised data which shows the parent why you are maybe saying no, that child can't be admitted to the school. So it just gives that third-party independent data. Non-curriculum specific, so I'm sure some of you listening will have students coming from a different curriculum. So it may be that you're teaching in the school IPC or a UK curriculum-based curriculum design, and it may be that you're having students from lots of different countries. So that may be from a international school, it may be from an American curriculum international school, it might be from an IB school. And so the curriculum-specific placement test will provide that level playing field, so your receiver on each of the students is not based on prior attainment, so it won't give any unfair advantage to any student. The content in assessment, in the placement test, it's covering three main components that you can see on the screen. So that's English literacy, and of course in any English medium teaching schools, whatever your curriculum, if it's taught in English, that student, even if they are new to English, you will need to understand their levels of literacy, because they're going to be expected to access English-speaking medium curriculum as they join the school. So the level of English literacy, and then on the ability side, it will show you the level of verbal reasoning for the student, and also the quantitative reasoning. Verbal reasoning is thinking with shape, and the quantitative reasoning is thinking with numbers. So of course, quantitative reasoning, we would expect to see quite a strong correlation between the quantitative reasoning score and mathematical ability. Now for the assessments, currently from age 7 years and 6 months through to 14 years and 7 months. We have received some feedback from schools that they would be very keen to also have particularly higher age range levels of the assessment, and that is certainly something that we will look at developing. We're just very keen to get feedback from schools who are using the placement test, and so that we can really develop assessments that meet your needs. So if there's any feedback that you have as you use our assessments, please do let us know. So we're to hear about your requests and what you would like to see. In administering the placement test, it's one test, but it is in 3 distinct parts. So we would recommend splitting up the assessment. The assessment lasts for around 90 minutes. So if you have a student in for an actions day, so whether that's a group of students or just one student, then perhaps they sit one part of the assessment, they could have a tour of the school, then second part, then an interview, then sit the third part. If that works, then that's an ideal, or two sections at the same time, but we wouldn't recommend administering all three parts, particularly with younger students. That's quite a long time to be sitting in front of a computer screen. If you can split it up, then that's our recommendation. Take this, as I said, and that's in two parts of 10 to 15 minutes. And C is actually untimed, but usually takes around 45 minutes. So the 90 minutes in total is taking into account practice time and settling time as well. It's to administer, I should say. And importantly, the placement test can be taken any time of year. I know that many of you listening, you'll have admissions on probably most days of the year. You will have some students coming in. So it's important that this test can be administered any time, on any day, and anywhere, and that's what the placement test will do. So taken remotely, because I know that a lot of you listening will need to be able to send a link through to a school, so that you know that that admissions test that placement test is being taken in a controlled environment, and you can do it with our placement test. And immediately, and we know how important that is, because you need to be working quickly and making decisions quickly, and I'm sure you'll have parents who will want a decision immediately. So the placement test will allow you to do that. £15 per assessment. Now, what you can see in front of you is an extract of a group of learners. So let's say you've had 5 students in today who have taken the assessment, and this is the data that you see. You have a score for literacy, a reading age, a non-verbal standardised age score, a quad standardised age score, how many attempts at the assessment they've had, and you would always expect to see that as 1, and a mean score. Who are new to standardised age scores, the graph in front of you, I don't want to be patronising, but I certainly remember the first time I saw the graph and I was sort of squinting at it, wondering what on earth it is. The key thing is that 100 means that student is average for a student of their age. If you look on the graph in front of you, you'll see that either side of that middle point of 100, you've got 34% and 34%. In other words, two together, 68% of students fall in that average score, 85 to 115, with 100 being the central point there, so 100 being average. So in other words, you know that a student 85 is inside that average range, so is quite well average, and then student 115 is above that average range, and a student above 100 we would class as above average, and below average. So I hope you guys, but please ask questions at the end if you're not sure. Individual reports, so what I've just shown you, I'll just flick back just to remind you, that was a group report, so you just see those top line scores there for each of the students who have taken the assessment, and then click on the names and drill down to each individual student. This example here, we can see that Sarah Griffith got a literacy score of 84. So looking back to that graph, remember that 100 is the average. 84 is a low score. So literacy-wise, is below, well below that average range. And non-verbal reasoning, 83, so again, well below average. Quant reasoning is higher. She's still not quite at that average 100, but she's closer at 94, and the score overall is 87. So looking at a student who has well below average literacy levels, and literacy-wise is again below average. Very easy to read, they're very simple to read, and of course flexible in that you can share them with colleagues. If a student's admitted mid-year, and I'm sure you have many students who come to you all through the academic year, then this data will be valuable for the reading teacher as well, so they can understand the literacy levels of that student, that the right support can be put in place for that student as well, so that they can fully access the curriculum, and you can see ability levels where perhaps in streamed classes where students should be placed. A couple of examples of this is one example. So school A called it, and this score is a selective criteria. So it's a selective intake of a school, and the criteria at this school is a combined standardised score of over 110 on the placement test. So that is the criteria for this school. No right or wrong. I know that admissions policies are different in every single school that I come across, and that's something that remains the same in some schools for a long time, or may well change. But certainly the placement test can give hard standardised data so that you can make that admissions policy very clear internally of the selection criteria on which you will admit students. So school A, a score of over 105 is critical as well. The student must also have an interview at the school. A confidential report is required from the head of the candidate's present school as well. A non-selective or inclusive criteria school, it's more about identifying strengths and areas of growth of the cohort that the student's going into and planning accordingly to make sure that that student's needs can be met with cohorts. It may be that this placement test will show those students with a literacy level of below 90. So again, that right support can be put in place for students of the lower scores. Also, students who may be gifted in maths as well. The test data will provide you with that. As the selection, of course, is up to you. These are just a couple of examples. Now, I may be familiar with our CAT 4 assessment. There are many schools who use our CAT 4 assessment, admissions assessment. And you'll be wondering, well, how is this different? Why should I use placement test rather than CAT 4? So I've just provided a few points which will highlight some of the differences between the assessments so that you can make the right decision for you as a school and your needs, and know how much time you have for that admissions process. So placement test, as I've talked about today, gives a snapshot of ability, including a reading age as well. It's quite a big difference. It's got a reading age, quick illustration, and very simple reports. So we don't provide commentary. We provide data. We provide standardised age score so that you can see the literacy levels and you can see the ability levels of the student. The places the need to develop your own in-house assessment, and you can results with parents whether successful or unsuccessful, but it doesn't have commentary there. Or it's 90 minutes. I should have added, I know I've mentioned that, but that's quite a big difference between placement test and CAT 4. Its placement test is 90 minutes long. Whereas 4 is much more of a diagnostic diagnostic assessment, which can also be combined with attainment test data once the student's in the school to give an indication of under and overachievement. CAP is a benchmark for ability, so CAP 4 covers a wider ability range of batteries, so it covers quantitative reasoning and non-verbal reasoning, as does placement test, but also spatial reasoning and verbal reasoning as well. CAP also provides indicators for the future as well, so that's another part. It also has a detailed range of reports with commentary, so again that's a bigger difference. And it also is a longer assessment, it lasts quarter hours, but again is in 3 different parts. So the key differences really are the level of the reporting and the length of the assessment, and also the range of the ability batteries that are assessed as well. And with placement tests, giving you reading aids, that's something that CAP 4 doesn't provide, about what's right for you as a school. The support, I think the key thing really, key message is talk to us. Please do drop us an email, give us a call. If you've got any questions about the placement test, then there's an opportunity for you to ask questions now at the end of this webinar. If you're listening to this as a recording, then please just get in touch and do look on our website for further information as well. That's clearly signposted from the gl-education.com website, and it's signposted to the placement test. You can see a sample report and you read further information about the assessment. Okay. I think over to you and any questions.
Claire, thank you very much for that indeed. If you have any questions, if you're listening in at the moment, just type the question into the chat box down the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and address that to those, and I'll pick those up and I'll relay those on to Claire. I had a couple of questions already. The first one, Claire, is about remote administration and testing students before they arrive at the school. How does that work?
Okay, so once you have entered the student details, the student that you want to sit the assessment, where they are in the world, you then generate a secure access code. The school who are then hosting that assessment for you, if you like. So in other words, the student who is applying to your school, perhaps they are in Korea and you are in Singapore. So that whole will type access code on our website and then securely access that assessment. So that access code is unique to the student and is a secure code. So all very secure, and you know the data sits within your login, but you don't need to share any login details other than the code with that school who are answering the assessment for you.
For that. Another question, the school says that most of their students are actually students where English is not their mother tongue, so it might be a second or third language. How does the assessment work in situation?
Okay. So it's really important, of course, that you understand the literacy levels of the students so that you can place them accordingly when they come into the school. And also you can provide the right support for the students so that they settle in quickly into the school as well. So that the literacy content will provide the right level of content for that student. And it may well be that you see a difference between that literacy level and non-verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning ability level, but that's important to see that, because you'll be able to see that that's a very aged student, but literacy-wise, that's struggling at the moment because they are new, perhaps, to the English language, so you could support that student accordingly. Maybe that within your admissions policy, that you accept students of a certain standardised score in the quantitative and the non-verbal reasoning, even if their literacy levels are low, because you know that you offer great provision for AL students to get their English up to a level where they can meet their potential and access the curriculum within your school. Okay.
I know you touched on this earlier on, but we've had a question about extending the age range upwards for the test. Idea of timelines. I suspect that's one we need to take offline. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's something that really, as I said, we're keen to take feedback. So if we can see that there is a big demand for those higher age assessments, then, you know, of course, we will respond accordingly. At the moment, we're sort of throwing that out there to you as customers, really, and saying, is this something that you want? So please just feed back to us. Because if there's enough demand, then we will put that into development.
Okay, that's offline, and we will go and ask questions internally. Another question then is the situation of a student who then applies on a subsequent occasion for a higher level grade, so not getting in the first time, coming round for the second time, questions the same for the second time round.
We would then be sitting a different assessment at a different level. So just going back to the tool, let me just show that up on the screen. Oh, there we go, past it. Okay, student was age 9, so the level 5 test previously, and then come back to you in the next another 12 months, let's say, then they would be taking a different assessment level, so they'd be taking level 6. Okay.
Thank you. And then another question, do we supply sort of test papers or practice papers for students to get used to this test, because it's a little bit unusual compared to the assessment they normally set?
No, we don't, and there is a reason for that, and that's because this assessment is designed to be taken without any preparation by the student at all. I think, you know, any assessment that requires prior practice, then you are immediately on uneven surface and not on that level playing field that I talked about earlier, in that some students would have more of an advantage than others, and we're trying to remove this. So all of the practice is built within the assessment. The literacy assessment, you know, it's literacy, so they don't need to practice. And the quantitative reasoning and the non-verbal, again, it's ability assessment that doesn't rely on prior attainment or curriculum knowledge.
Thank you very much, Claire. I think we've mopped up all of the questions we've received so far. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We do appreciate it. Apologies for those of you who did have some difficulties getting online. At the end of the webinar, and we will get this recording out to you, which we'd expect you to receive within 48 hours. From London, thank you very much. Goodbye.